Confused about how to plan for your retirement? Shawn Maloney is here to help. Shawn has created the Retire Happy framework that considers more than just how much you should save. Getting information and tools to preserve your financial future is minutes away. Welcome to the Priority of Retirement with your host, Shawn Maloney.
Welcome to another episode of the Priority of Retirement, where we dive into many facets of retirement planning, unpacking those strategies, ideas, and insights for that thoughtful and rewarding journey into retirement. Today, we are privileged to be joined by Fritz Gilbert, the founder of the Retirement Manifesto, an award-winning blog dedicated to helping people achieve that great retirement. He's also the author of Keys to a Successful Retirement. After 33 years of career in corporate America, Fritz just retired at age 55 in 2018 and now shares lessons he's learned to help others navigate their own retirement journey. He and his wife live in the Appalachian Mountains of Blue Ridge, a gorgeous place where they're with their three dogs, and they run a Freedom for Fido, a 501(c) charity that builds fences, free fences for low-income families with dogs on change. That's fantastic. So Fritz, welcome to the show.
Hey, Shawn, from one fellow Georgian to another, man. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm excited to be with you. Thank you.
Man, my pleasure. It's a great fit, for the discussions that we have here on the podcast. I was excited to see when we had you scheduled to come on. So let's just dive right in a little bit, right? So you've experienced it and you've lived it, the corporate world things to the transition to retirement. And I love that you're sharing, ideas and things that you went through and whatnot with other people. So tell us a little bit about that transition from the 33-year career in corporate America to finding that Retirement Manifesto and how that all really kind of shaped your retirement.
Yeah, it's interesting looking back because it's not, if I would have laid it all out in the beginning, it's not how I envisioned it, but looking back at it, it's just been a very, very great transition and I couldn't be happier. So let me jump into like year 30 of my career. So I was 52, been grinding, been saving regularly, but we weren't like focused obsessively on retirement. We were living life. We were enjoying our journey. I had frequent flyer miles. So we took nice trips around the world every year with our daughter, when she was growing up. So we enjoyed the now, but we were also responsible about saving for the future. So we probably started maybe early in my career, just getting the match in a 401k, saving 6%, 10%. But, as I started getting promotions, we were just very diligent. If I got a 3% raise, we'd take 2% of it and put it in savings, only bring home 1% more. So we avoided lifestyle inflation, did a lot of things almost fortunately by accident that fell in the right direction. Let's say by my mid 40s, we were probably saving 25, 30% of my salary, by doing it that way. So it was just a long, slow, patient ride, and woke up, about 50 years old and started thinking about it and saying, I've never really looked at retirement calculators. I know we've been diligent. We should take a look at it. So we ran the numbers and son of a gun, we could retire, 54, 55.
Right.
So that kind of started the whole thought process. Prior to that, it was just, enjoying my job and not worrying about it. And so the blog started 2 years before I retired, Shawn, and that was intentional. That was starting to recognize that there's things beyond the financial side of planning. And part of what I wanted to do was experiment with different things that might turn into hobbies in retirement. So I just picked up blogging as a potential hobby.
Right.
And that's worked out beautifully. I'm 7 years into retirement now. Blogs become a big part of, my identity and my purpose in retirement. I'm enjoying it. And it all started as a little bit of an experiment. And it turns out I love writing and I, love helping people figure out the journey. And, that was one of the keys is experimenting with things before you get to retirement. So yeah, it's been good. Now we live in the mountains. We're loving life. We've got a second home down near Southern Alabama where our daughter lives. So we're able to spend time with family, able to spend time on our charity and other things that you mentioned. So yeah, life is the best years of our life right now, Shawn. It's really good.
I love that. Absolutely love it. I love the word purpose there, and finding your purpose and what you want to do, spend your time in retirement, what brings you happiness and joy. It's really what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
We work hard our whole lives, and we want to be able to enjoy that retirement. And oftentimes we tell people, look, that nest egg that you saved up is just a tool, right, to help you facilitate the retirement that you want to have, and let's figure that out, part first before we figure out how to utilize the tools to make it happen, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you focus so much on the money when you're planning for retirement, but once you get into retirement, you realize it's not about the money at all, right? It's about finding those fulfilling things, finding your purpose, finding things God wants you to do.
Yep.
And that's where the energy needs to be invested, not so much on the financial side. The financial side, ultimately, it's not rewarding, right? Okay, it's, that's the fire community. That's my warning to them. Don't get so obsessed on hitting your fire number to retire early that you sacrifice life today and you don't think about what you want your life to be after, because eventually it's just a number, right? That's not going to bring you fulfillment. It's the stuff, like you said, the tool leads to something. It's the leading to something part that you need to focus on. So I appreciate the way you go about it with your clients. I think you have the right approach.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, obviously we want them to have the right financial plan so they can utilize it to do the right retirement. But the focus isn't, like you said, that's not the focus. That's just the first part. You get it laid out so that way you can enjoy your journey, you can enjoy your retirement, and it's literally just a tool. And that's the way we look at it, the way it should be, the way it should be used. So
yeah.
But one of the things that people do, in finding purpose in retirement, whether they're trying to that transition. To me, there's two big transitions in retirement. One, just the emotional lifestyle change, because you went from working to shifting to having time what you're going to do with your days. The financial side is you're shifting from a saving and accumulation mode to spending. Sometimes that's a mind shift change. But when people are looking for those purpose and that things that they want to do, and I know you found your charity that you want to do, and a lot of times it's a great time to give back and to better our communities, right? We all could use a little bit betterment in our communities, right? So I love that you started a 501(c)(3). Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's and I thank you for pointing it out. I think one of the secrets that we've learned, the name of my book is Keys to a Successful Retirement. So one of the keys, I guess, let's use that word, is definitely, finding a way to replace some of those things that you used to get from work besides the paycheck. Your sense of identity, your sense of purpose, your, structure to your day, all those types of things. And it's not like the math is easy, right? It's a spreadsheet. You do some formulas. It's relatively easy. Finding this intangible soft side stuff is a much more artistic, serendipitous type of process. It's not, you can't just lay out a spreadsheet and say, take step one, take step two, et cetera. So the charity is an example of, my wife actually founded it, and her mom had just passed away. She had been a full-time caregiver. So that was, in hindsight, kind of my wife's retirement. And she was kind of struggling. I would say, if you've read any of the Dr. Moyne's 4 phases of retirement, the phase 2, which follows the honeymoon, is this kind of disorientation period, which almost 85% of retirees go through it.
Right.
I didn't, because I'd done so much planning, but my wife did. So she's in the middle of this phase 2, and she saw a video about this charity out in Oregon that was building free fences for dogs on chains. And she's like, man, we need that here. We're in Appalachia, as you've been up here, that, there's a huge population of affluent retirees, but then there's an almost equally large invisible population of poor Appalachia. They live up in the hollers. They live in the old mobile homes. They don't necessarily have running water. There's real poverty, and you don't see it as a tourist, but it's here.
Right.
So, and a lot of that culture used to put dogs on chains. No big deal. It's just how you took care of your dogs. So she started it, took the first step. And now 5 years later, it's turned into a tremendous, tremendous thing. We've got 200 volunteers. Wow. We've built 170 fences. We've gotten over 500 dogs a better life. And it's so rewarding on so many fronts, all because she saw that video and she's like, we need that here. And she took that first step. Yeah. Taking that first step is the takeaway lesson from all this, Shawn. It's figuring this non-financial stuff out is hard, but it all comes down to, if something interests you, take that first step. You'll be blown away where it can lead.
And you know what? If you take that first step and it's not right, then you pivot to the next thing. Just try it, right?
Exactly.
Try things and figure out what sticks and what doesn't stick. And it's worth the trying. I encourage people to not be shy about it. If that thought was placed in your head, or God's leaning something on your heart to do something, listen to it. Go ahead and do it. Right?
And I think along those lines, if specifically if it's God ordained, you'll see barriers fall. It's easy to make excuses and all that on your own. But if you really give something an honest try and you feel led to do something, within a very short amount of time, you'll see these barriers just dropping like a bulldozer. It's like, okay, this is clearly what I'm intended to do. It becomes obvious when, it's for both my writing and my wife's charity. We both have had numerous examples of that where it's just clear that this is what we're supposed to be doing. So you'll know.
Oh yeah, absolutely love that. So kind of foray into that, those personal passions. And I know for you have, the RV adventures, the fly fishing, hiking, how does all that contribute to your overall, we've talked about it a little bit, but how does that contribute to your overall fulfillment in retirement, right?
Yeah, when I first was thinking about retirement, I was definitely more activity focused, fly fishing, all the things you mentioned. I go mountain biking quite a bit. I like to trail run with a lot of hiking up here, RV
Yeah.
travel. And by definition, when you're kind of thinking, what am I going to do in retirement? You tend to think about activities, and activities are fine. We enjoy them, and I love being outside, and I wouldn't want to live anywhere else because I am outside every day, and I'm a very physical person, and I love that.
Yeah.
But I don't think ultimately it's just doing those activities that brings you the ultimate sense of fulfillment and purpose. They're nice. It's better than going to work, sure.
Sure.
But I think it's the real sense of fulfillment comes from helping other people and hearing them say, man, you changed my life or whatever. You don't get that type of fulfillment from, walking on the Appalachian Trail. It's nice. We love it. But it's a whole next level when you start looking at making an impact in the lives of other people. So I wouldn't want just the activities. And if I had to choose between activities or more purposeful oriented things, I would choose the purpose oriented. I would give up the activities because they don't ultimately bring the fulfillment that I get from the other. And I think most people feel that way. Now, obviously, the best thing is to have both. Get a little bit of both.
There's nothing like it. I mean, that feeling you get that you're being used for a purpose and you're helping others out, that's a great feeling to, give back. It brings not only the person you're helping or people you're helping joy, brings you joy as well, right? We're filling some of our callings of what we're meant to do. I think the activity side of things, I think they have their place and they're great. Like you said, they're more for, maybe sometimes it's for your own mindsets and re-energizing and just, doing some things that you like just to fulfill yourself, not fulfill, but to re-energize yourself because you now have the time to do a couple things that you like to do, right?
Yeah.
But I agree, you're not going to find the ultimate fulfillment in that. It just might help round out your overall, life.
Yeah, and I think in the transition, I'm sure you talk to a lot of people on the cusp of retirement, and you probably hear we want to travel from almost everybody, right? Everybody wants to travel, and everybody knows. And we had the same thing. We got an RV, we traveled around the country. That's great. And I think for a transition type thing, that's good because it does, it forces that break from your routine. It gets you in a new environment. But I don't know anybody. I've been retired 7 years now. I've talked to tons of people. We've RV'd for years, but I don't know anybody who's kind of said this, like they do it for 5 years and they're still doing it and they're nomads and they don't have a house and they're like, this is life. I love it. Every single one of them that I've talked to in time, they start missing that sense of community and being involved somewhere. And, it sounds great, but when you actually do it, you're never connected anywhere. And and that becomes old after a while. And you're like, you know what? I think let's go ahead and get that cabin in the mountains we were thinking about. Let's get a home base. Maybe we'll take a month each year and go out in the RV, but we don't want to be gone 12 months anymore. That was too much. Yeah. Almost everybody goes through that. And what I think drives that, Shawn, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's that sense of community, sense of belonging. It's that relationship. It's exactly what we were just talking about. You don't get that when you're nomadic. You need to be in a sense of place to have that. That's my view.
No, 1,000% agree. And I see the same thing as well. People might start off that way, but what you hit on there is spot on. Not just, when you're doing the charity work and all those kind of things is great. But one of the other big factors, there's been a lot of studies done around retirement and the psychology aspects of it, what really truly makes a fulfilling, joyful, kind of retirement. And one of the big components of that is the community aspect, the relationship aspect, right? Yes, if you still have your spouse, that's fantastic. But beyond that, we're built for relationships. Some people more than others, but that sense of community is built inside of us, and it's drives a good portion of that. So I 1,000% agree with that.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Harvard study. I'm sure you've read about this. It was like it's been an 80-year continuous study of Harvard grads. Yeah, and they looked at everybody, every single grad, and it's the biggest study of this, and it's basically about happiness. And what they found is it didn't matter if you're CEO of the company, it doesn't matter if you're an unemployed alcoholic bum, which I doubt too many Harvard grads are, but you get the point. It doesn't matter what you did for a living. It doesn't matter how much money you have. Yep. The ultimate highest correlation they found to happiness from 80 years of Harvard grads was the quality of their relationships over everything else. So it is real. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I've read that study. I share that with people because it's kind of eye-opening people because they hear, they hear Harvard and they hear Harvard grads and they kind of put them on this enchilada and stuff. And then it comes down to, Oh yeah, what kind of relationships you got?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It's
Yep.
true though. It's very true. Well, I love the title of your book, Keys to Successful Retirement. What are some, not to give away the secret sauce here or to give away the punchline, but what are some key takeaways from your book?
Yeah. So the book, I wrote that 2 years after I retired, and I was looking back. I'd started my blog 2 years before I retired. I was now writing this book 2 years after. So it was 2 years before, through the transition, and 2 years into it. My transition went extremely well.
Good.
So the whole point of the book was looking back and saying, what did I do? And based on research and whatnot, what have I learned in preparing for and now transitioning into retirement? What have these keys been that have helped me make this transition so smooth? I had a incredibly smooth transition. I'm very thankful. And the one biggest factor that I found, and I actually listed it twice. It's the only key that I listed twice in the book. I did that for emphasis so I can mention it here, is the highest correlation between a successful transition is how much time did you spend prior to retirement planning for it, not just on the financial side, but also on the non-financial.
Yeah.
And the more time you spend thinking about that and focusing on it, look at me, I started the blog 2 years before I retired, right? Those types of activities where you're intentionally starting to experiment, you're starting to recognize, okay, I'm going to have to do something about how much structure do I want in my day? Because I have structure at my workplace. You can do all of that before you retire,
Sure.
but nobody does.
Right.
So that's really what the book is about, is recognizing that planning element. And not only on the financial side, but here's the things you need to think about: the relationship with your spouse, right? How much time are you going to spend together? I call it he time, she time, and we time, right? How much time do you want alone? How much time do you want together? Those types of things. Yeah. And incorporating that into your planning, those are the most important things you can do to ensure a smooth transition to retirement. That's the key summary of the book.
I love it. Absolutely love it. And I know you mentioned, the 4 phases of retirement. I know what you're talking about there. We often refer to these 3 phases of retirement, but it's more in that the 3 phases of retirement pieces that I refer to are more on the financial side. It's kind of the go, slow go, and no go year kind of things, right? But I know the other aspect of the phases play a big role into that transition into retirement. So explain a little bit about those 4 phases and how you understand them to really help.
This was a TEDx talk that Riley Moynes had done. I wrote an article about it, and I think I wrote it like 18 months ago, and I think it's been like the #1 most viewed article on my website. So it's a really, really common or people are interested in the topic.
Yeah.
So basically, based on all this research that this Moynes did, there are 4 very predictable phases. First one's honeymoon. Obviously, you're excited. You don't have to get up for the alarm clock. Don't have to deal with the commute. I'm free. This is great. Everybody goes through that, but that's not ultimately what retirement's about, right? So recognize, hey, this is great, but this isn't the end of it. Phase 2, and I'm not going to get the names right. I don't remember them off the top of my head. It doesn't matter. I can tell you it's basically this disorientation.
Yeah.
And this is when you start, wow, this is forever. This is what I've got. And I don't know why, but I just don't quite feel right. And what that is it's a culmination of all those things you used to get from work that are now gone. Right. So that structure to your day, getting up at a set time, having a routine, having a purpose, getting a pat on the head when you did a good job at work, maybe having relationships at work, all those different things that you had are now, they're gone. And you haven't even thought about them, right? You're like, I'm free. I'm out of work. This is great. But your mind and your body and your life is missing those things. And you don't know why you don't quite feel right, but you just don't feel right. You feel disoriented. It's not really depression. It's more, my wife, I like the word she was, I just felt disoriented. I felt off somehow. And that can last, typically that'll start like 9 to 18 months into retirement. And it can last, on average, I'd say 1 to 2 years. For some people, they never get out of it, and they struggle through the rest of their retirement.
Yeah.
The way to get out of it is recognize this isn't what I want my life to be. Yeah. And you have to take the initiative. Nobody's going to do it for you. And it gets into, once you've recognized that you need to make a change, that's the first indication that you're entering phase 3. And phase 3 is kind of this trial and experimentation where you're going to just try some things. You're going to, I'm just going to do something because I can't just sit here and watch TV all day. I'm going crazy. So you get involved with a local charity. You do this, you do that. You try 10 different things. And maybe 1 or 2 of them will stick. And, my wife's charity, my writing, those were trial and experimentation type examples.
Yeah.
And once you start down that path, you're kind of in that phase for the rest of your life. You're always experimenting, you're always tweaking, and even if you get to phase 4, which is kind of, you found your purpose and fulfillment and life is good. I'm there. I'm still doing trial and experimentation, right? I will never stop doing trial and experimentation. And I'm always looking to improve my hand, right? It's fun. So it's really getting over that depression phase and into the trial and experimentation. That's what leads you to a really fulfilling retirement. Very predictable path.
Yeah, no, it's very common. And it's kind of sad. There's a lot of people that just don't think about those aspects of it. And like you said, people get super excited, for retirement and they get that honeymoon phase. And we talked earlier about, okay, they'll go do the travel, they'll go do all those things. And they kind of knock out all this stuff that they quote had on their list, the first year or two or whatever. And then they're kind of sitting there going, okay, now what? Right. Yep. And there's a lot of studies out there too. And then you can see that there's a lot of people that go into this form of depression in retirement because they were these high performing people in work, or work defined them, or whatever it was, between, all that time you spent at work, and maybe you had a family and you had kids that were doing all these activities, and then all of a sudden it's just you and your time and your spouse, right? And now what do you do? And I think it's critical, like you were saying, to plan that out. If you can start thinking about those things ahead of time before you ever retire. There's a couple of people that talk about these trial retirements, right? Like take one of your vacation weeks, right, and act like you're on retirement, right?
Yeah.
And get in that mindset. Or if you're fortunate enough to be able to take longer than that, but it's really that shifting of perspective, so you don't get stuck in those traps. It's very real. Very real.
Exactly. And it's sad, but I mean, your chance of depression goes up by 40% in retirement. So it's real. And the sad part is it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
But the reality of it is, if you just walk blindly into retirement, like, I'm so glad to be done, I hate my job, I can't wait to get there. And you get let go. That's unfortunately a very, very, severe. People that get let go unexpectedly almost always have a worse time in phase 2 because they had no time to plan. So you can't necessarily blame them. But regardless, if you walk into retirement with no planning and you just walk into it, you're going to go through a rough patch. Full stop. 100%.
Oh yeah.
And that really sets people back. And they're like, this isn't what I expected. And the I guess the point of my work and why I think I like your style is it doesn't have to be that way. There's things you can do in your last couple of years of work. I'm an example of that. I jumped right into phase 3 after the honeymoon. I never had phase 2. Right. But you think about it, I was doing phase 3 trial and experimentation in my last 2 years of work. So I hadn't even had the honeymoon yet, right? I was doing phase 3 before phase 1. You don't have to do them in order. You can jump in and start some of this stuff now and save yourself the heartburn of having to go through it. It's pay me now or pay me later. You're going to pay eventually.
Yeah. No, I love the messaging. I love the concept because a lot of people just think about, they hear the word retirement and they just think, people, and rightly so, people get excited because it's something you look forward to. But there's some realities there. And sometimes it doesn't set in for a little while after you get past that honeymoon phase, like you said, but the more you can plan for it up front and think about it. And even for those people that aren't planners out there, this isn't a bad planning, right? This is a fun planning.
Exactly. Yeah. And I would say, because typically planning, you're a spreadsheet person, you're a numbers person, right? I always was. Yeah. This isn't that type of planning.
Right.
So you have to recognize, even if you kind of have a planning orientation, this isn't that. This, put yourself back to when you were like in kindergarten playing in the sandbox, right? It's that type of planning. It's playing around. It's not the side of your brain that you've exercised for a long, long time. And it's going to take some time to wake it up and stretch it and get it working again. But that's all fun, right? Yeah. That's the joy of retirement, is being able to do those kind of things. It's great.
Yeah. Like we say, when you're growing up, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, it's the same concept. What do you want to be when you're in retirement, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, man, it's been a pleasure having you on. I encourage everybody to check out your blog and the book and whatnot. That information will be in the show notes. It's been a pleasure having you on, and just let everybody know that, Fritz and guests of the Prior to Retirement, we're not affiliated but just by appearing on the show, nor that it endorse us or a company. But it's been a pleasure. Your concepts and your discussion points are fantastic. Please, everybody, check them out. Until next time, here's to aligning your retirement for that happy retirement. Y'all have a wonderful and blessed day. Y'all take care.
Thanks for listening to The Priority of Retirement with Shawn Maloney. If you enjoyed the show, check out our reviews on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more free resources to help with your retirement journey, go to retirewisepro.com or check the link in the show notes. You can also download a free copy of Shawn's book, The Priority of Retirement, or reach out to discuss working with him directly at retirewisepro.com. Thanks for listening.
Insurance products offered through the insurance business RetireWise LLC. RetireWise LLC is also an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through AE Wealth Management LLC, AEWM, a registered investment advisor. AEWM does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by RetireWise LLC are not subject to investment advisor requirements. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the insuring carrier. This podcast intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. RetireWise LLC is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by RetireWise LLC. Guests of the Priority of Retirement are not affiliated with, nor do they endorse Shawn Maloney or RetireWise LLC.